Hello everybody, good morning, good evening, good afternoon. This is Graham's other channel, as a lot of you know. I get muddled between the two channels he's got, but I've made a decision. I'm going to keep both of his channels going, and I was thinking, I think this channel is the one with a picture of him as with his parachute. So I thought, because I discussed this with Graham before he moved over, and before, I hope you guys can hear me because the breeze is coming around the corner there. Let me move it like that because I'm conscious that you can't hear if there's wind. Hang on. Should have done this before starting filming, shouldn't I? Anyway, yes, I discussed it with him, and before we knew all about how the funeral was going to work out, I'd said to him, what about an online type thing? And he loved the idea of that, because one of the things he always wanted was for people to know all about his life, you know, what he did with his life. So that's what I'm going to do on this channel. Not just for him, but for me and for you guys. And because he never really explained before about the order of events in his life. And so this one, I'm going to try. I've got old little cassette videos. Do you know the sort I mean? He's got loads of them from when his dad was alive, from before I met him. He's got loads of other members of the family, photo albums, stuff like that. So I'm going to try and put all of that on this channel. His other channel, that'd be Boat House, you know, just, well, I don't know what. And I'll keep the original one for talking about Meghan Markle. So I thought I'd have the sunset go down with you guys today. I thought that was really appropriate. Yeah, I really hope the breeze isn't catching it. It's amazing, these microphones, they can really catch it. So basically, Graham didn't like school, and his mum and dad split up. Now, I'm not entirely sure of the age, I'd have to ask his brother, but when he was quite young. As you all know, his mother ran off with the vicar. But him and his brother remained with his dad, and his mum's mum sort of helped bring them up because his dad was working full-time for the gas board. And then he would spend like some of the year down in Brighton with his mum and her new husband. I'm going to smoke as well, I'm sorry. I love sitting up here. This is one of his favourite places to be. Yeah, they'd take turns, him and his brother, I think, going down to Brighton. Well, anyway, when Graham was about 16 or 17, possibly a little younger than that, he had a girlfriend who he really loved. And then he signed up to join the army. And once he passed out basic training, then they found out that his girlfriend was pregnant with Graham's eldest daughter, Victoria. Now, I mean, you could call it a shotgun wedding, but the impression Graham gave me was always that he and his first wife were in love. You know, they were young, they were in love, so no one had to twist his arm to marry her. They just thought it was a good idea. So they were both the same age, very young. And his first wife is lovely, but the marriage didn't last and they split up. She's with another guy, and so Graham's two children from his first marriage, Victoria and Richard, were brought up by the mum. That was the agreement. There was no custody battle. Graham and the mum, his first wife, were adamant that in their instance the children belonged with the mother. So that's how that worked out. And then Graham got into, well, I think he got into parachuting before he split up with his first wife. He was with his first wife about 10 or 11 years. I mean, it was a long time. And it would have been the early 90s recession. Anyone remember that one? That was a beast, wasn't it? I remember the early 90s recession. Graham and I still hadn't met at this stage. He'd left the army, split up with his first wife, and he was working as a mechanic. Kind of self-employed, and work just dried up, you know. I can appreciate that, I understand that. So him and a few other parachutists, because you know, he's going parachute centre, I think he said it was about £5 a jump or something like that. I'm sure it'd be a lot more these days. So we're looking at about 1992, 93-ish. And a lot of them, their work was running out, you know. This is often the way when people break the law. It's to do with economics, isn't it? Well, they were all sitting around the pub one day talking about what they could do with their skill of being parachutists, how they could earn money. All a bit like Boys from the Black Stuff, if anyone remembers that TV show. And someone came up with the brilliant idea that they could smuggle diamonds, just like James Bond, you know. And as you and I know, the average person smuggles, I mean, I've never met anyone who smuggles diamonds. I would imagine that's quite a rare type of person. So anyway, they couldn't find anyone who wanted to smuggle diamonds, but they found somebody who wanted them to smuggle some cannabis resin. Now, this is one of the things that always drove Graham mad, that the newspapers, there was a particular journalist called Stephen Wright. He's actually here on YouTube. He works for the Daily Mail. He was their chief crime correspondent, and back in the day, when he used to write about us, he would always say Graham was a drug smuggler. You know, big umbrella, the word drug, isn't it? Could mean cocaine, could mean heroin, could mean ecstasy, could mean a multitude of things. But none of the newspapers ever said Graham had been caught trying to smuggle cannabis, which, as we all know, is largely legal these days. I mean, I think it is, isn't it? I don't know, because I don't smoke it. You have to excuse me, my teeth have gone a bit funny. In fact, I'm not quite sure. I think one of my wisdoms, I had a wisdom fall out that side last year, and I think the one this side's going to do it. I think my head's shrinking, so it's quite hard for me to talk. Anyway, so where are we up to? Yeah, him and about 5 other people found someone who wanted cannabis smuggled, and they had a plan that they would get a pilot, because Graham couldn't fly at that point. He was a parachutist, but he had not yet learned to fly. So they found a pilot. I don't know the actual intricacies of how it worked, but I gather it was the pilot would fly abroad, collect the packages, and then drop the cannabis with little parachutes over an airfield where other people would be to collect them. You know, I'm not sure if Graham was on the aeroplane, the one dropping them, or if he was on the airfield. I don't know. Anyway, the pilot that they had chosen, well, as Graham told me, he died. He was flying a little tiny kit plane and going upside down over the runway and doing spins and stuff, and he did a bit of a Douglas Bader and spanked, died. So they needed a new pilot, and they found this other guy who, as it would turn out, was working for Customs and Excise. That was the story. And so the Customs knew from the beginning, and they were there waiting for them, and they caught them. Graham had never broken the law before that. You know, he was when he was in the army, he got his cross rifle, not instructor, oh, I forget, I've got to get this, because he always used to say to me, no, I was not a marksman, but someone who's in the army will know. And he always won all the shooting contests. And he had his own personal firearms, a lot. Before the guy in Hungerford, and I forget the guy's name, there was a fella who just went crazy. You used to be allowed to have all kinds of guns in the UK, but because of this fella, I think he might have been called Michael Ryan, he had a Kalashnikov and he killed his mother and went out on a rampage, and he shot a load of people in a shopping precinct in Hungerford. Wow. Graham had a load of licensed firearms, and he wouldn't have got them if he'd had a record. You know, he had all these guns, and he had a Kalashnikov. He had to hand it in on a gun amnesty, because this I'm sure the guy was called Michael Ryan, and he was really pissed off because I think he said he paid about 500 quid for it, but on the police amnesty he got a fraction of that. He handed in some other guns, and when he was in the army, the other thing the thing he really didn't like about the army was you only had to do a little thing and then you were put on a charge, and it was the fines. He was paid 40 quid a week in those days, and he just felt they're clawing the money back on fine this, fine that, you know, your boots aren't shiny enough, I'm going to fine you a fiver for that. I'm sure people who've been in the army could describe it a lot better. So anyway, he'd had all these fire gun licenses, and so he that was not involved in the smuggling operation at all of the cannabis. But when they were caught, what had happened before they did the smuggling, Graham had been working on some building with somebody, and the guy had said, I've got an old gun, can you tell me a bit about it? And he really knew his onions over guns. So he had a look at this gun. He said, that's a Sten gun from the Second World War. And it was all rusty, and the fella said, throw it away. And Graham said, I'll give you 20 quid for that. So Graham bought it of him, but a Sten gun is an automatic weapon, and so was illegal. So he put it in his lockup, and he'd been restoring that because, as you know, he was really keen about history. And then they got caught for the smuggling. The police are searching various properties and premises, and when they went to his first wife, she very innocently said, he never comes round here except to get the key for his lockup. She didn't know. She wasn't to know. Well, of course, that's where the Sten gun was stashed, and police found that. So he was the only one out of the group that got charged for the smuggling and this firearm. But as it turned out, when he went to court, the judge was really lenient about the Sten gun, because he said, well, I can see exactly what this is. I've looked at your history. I mean, I read the judge's report. This is exactly what he said. He said it is completely illegal. This is a Class 5 firearms. But I can see you've been a registered licensed gun holder for many years. You were in the army. I've seen your army record around firearms. And he said, this firearm is a collectible antique Sten gun, and we can see you were restoring it. Having said all of that, it's a Class 5, and I'm giving you 18 months. I mean, I never met anyone who'd been to prison for having a machine gun who just never came up for air. I was stunned when he told me he got 18 months for a machine gun. I'm like, no way. And a lot of people nicknamed him Machine Gun Graham because of the Sten gun. Anyway, while he was in prison, he got absolutely hammered for the cannabis. Hammered for that. I think he got 3.5 years for that, 18 months for the machine gun, so 5 years in total. So he served 3 years and so many months. But once he got into prison, he met someone who said, have you ever tried smoking cannabis? And he said, well, the irony. No, I haven't actually, but I'm here because of it. I might as well try it and see what the fuss is all about. So he smoked a lot of weed after that in prison. He said it helped pass the time. I don't understand that, because whenever I've tried it, it makes time go so much longer. Anyway, I suppose it's relaxing, isn't it? He served his sentence. When he got out, he sadly found out his father had cancer, asbestosis, and his father died about a year after he got out of prison, and he left Graham some money, which enabled Graham to learn to fly. And he moved down to be with his mum, who lived in Portslade. Nearest airport, Shoreham Airport. So he went down to Shoreham, learned to fly with the lovely Richard Pryor, who some of you may have seen, came to visit before and spend some time with Graham. And he met a whole array of wonderful characters at Shoreham Airport. That would have been 1996. I didn't turn up at Shoreham Airport till 97. So this was all, before me. And then after we met, then the rest of you, I think, know the rest of the story. But it always did irritate him, people saying just drugs, generally. I would love to sit down and talk to that Stephen Wright from the Daily Mail, because he really had a lot of preconceptions about both me and Graham. I mean, he really felt he got it sized up, like a pantomime. The evil criminal and the holier-than-thou police officer. Well, police officer that chased me, he got arrested on conspiracy to pervert the course of justice in another case. But I mean, life just isn't black and white, is it? It just isn't like a pantomime. But I thought I'd put those records straight for a start. Oh, and Graham was married to another lady for 6 months. She came down, I think her boyfriend, must have been boyfriend, was beating her up. And she came down with her 2 kids and to find refuge, and Graham said, you can move in with me. And they'd known each other from years before, from the parachuting, and she was best friends with an old flame of his. And I think he just sort of thought, because he fancied me, but I had another boyfriend. And when I met him, he had another girlfriend, but I didn't have a boyfriend, it never lined up. So I suppose he figured, well, she's not going to go out with me. And they turned up at the airport one night and said, we just got married. And all of us, all the pilots, me, Tyrone, we were like, holy fuck, you both just did what? You do know that that's quite a serious thing. And they were both really flippant, went, oh, so what, who fucking cares? I don't know if they were drunk when they did it. Anyway, it lasted 6 months, and she went back to her previous boyfriend, and they divorced amicably. But only 6 months. So I was technically his 3rd wife. But I mean, I really wouldn't class his 2nd wife as a wife. His 1st wife, yeah, 10 years, couple of kids, but the 2nd wife, no, neither of them really took it seriously. And so I'm going to try and find video of everybody that is in Graham's life, or was in Graham's life, and and I'll probably put that on this channel. And maybe a few other things as well. You never know. The sun's going down a bit now. Speaking of time, I've got a question for you all. Now, loads of people say, doesn't time fly? Loads of people say that, don't they? And I've never understood it. In fact, when Graham's friend Richard Pryor came down to visit, they were both saying, can't believe it's been 30, 40 years since we were flying together. And I said to them, I have the complete opposite. I think time goes very, very slowly. Always has for me. Always. A year to me is like, it feels like 10 years. And I don't smoke cannabis. I do not take drugs. I have smoked it in the past. And time goes even more slowly. And this morning I woke up and I was thinking, because so much has happened in the last few days. I was laying there and I was thinking, when did Graham die? How long ago was that? And I'd sort of convinced myself it had been a couple of months. And then I thought, well, that can't be right. What have I been doing all this time? There must have been loads of Saturdays. What have I been doing? Then I remembered, I thought Trevor was here last Saturday. And I thought, well, he came out just after. I thought it's only been 9 days. But the time lapse for me goes very, very slowly. All the time. I just wondered if you get that or if it's just me. Anyway, we will chat again, and I will take you places. Perhaps out on the Bay of Gibraltar on a jet ski. I don't know. But I've got loads and loads of stuff of Graham's to go through, and I really want to put it in the right place and organise it all, especially his photographs. He was a photographer, so he had so many pictures of not only our family, but people going back years. And every single drop of it is precious. So I'm going to try and upload it onto this channel. I hope you're all having a lovely day and a lovely evening. And I will talk to you soon.